My feeling is if you put your heart into something that you really love and that fascinates you, you're never going to have mass appeal on anything anyway, but you're going to find a group of people who, are your tribe who go, that's exactly the thing I love.
Welcome to the Stark Reflections on Writing and Publishing podcast. There has never been a better time for writers. More information, options, and opportunities are available to you, but navigating these requires insight. Join Mark Leslie Lefebvre as he draws upon more than a quarter century of experience as a writer, a bookseller, and a trusted book industry consultant to explore and reflect on the writing and publishing landscape to help you make informed choices on your writer journey.
Hello, Reflectives, and welcome to episode 434 of the Stark Reflections podcast. This is your host, Mark Leslie Lefebvre. In today's episode, I have an interview with John Gaspard. John is the author of the Eli Mark's mystery series and the Como Lake Players mystery series. He also hosts Behind the Page, the Eli Mark's podcast. Now, you might remember John talking about magicians, etc., and some of these books in episode 218. But in this episode, we talk a little bit about those books and his background in film, but we mostly talk about a really cool new passion project with his book that takes a look at a local theater company and their 2-year run of a classic movie. Now, the book is called Held Over, Harold and Maude at the Westgate Theater, and there'll be more about that book, that unique and fun situation, John's passion for this film, how it even ties into my own passion for some classic 80s films, and much more. And that's coming up later in this podcast. But first, let's hear a word about this episode's sponsor. This episode is sponsored by my affiliate link to manuscriptreport.com. This is book marketing services using ethical AI-powered solutions to enhance your book's market presence and help you reach more of your target audience. Now, they have various tools starting at $25. They are trusted by more than 1,000 authors worldwide, and there's no subscription involved. Stop guessing what works. AI-powered marketing reports with personalized marketing plans, scroll-stopping social media content, detailed target audience comps, and much more. Now, I leverage the main report at manuscriptreport.com for all kinds of books that I've been working on, both books that I'm publishing myself, as well as books of friends of mine. And it is amazing, the comp authors, the comp titles, the marketing copy, the draft of a press release, the keywords, all of these things that can really help you nail down your marketing, and in particular, details to help you with your target audience. And I've been using log lines and pitches, doing in-person events based on stuff I've got from manuscriptreport.com. Now, if you use my affiliate link, Mark5, MARK5, and you use the reports at Manuscript Report, you can get $5 off. And you can either follow the affiliate link from starkreflections.ca or just go to manuscriptreport.com and save $5 by using the code MARK, the number 5, Mark 5. This is going to be a brief introductory bit because, as I mentioned in episode 433, last week's episode, I'm traveling this week. I'm going to be in Florida at St. Pete Beach at Novelists Inc., and I'm really looking forward to that week with some amazing folks and many who I haven't seen in a long time. So I'm really looking forward to that. I was just messaging with Dan and Jim from Draft to Digital, who are both going to be there, and I'm looking forward to connecting with them in person. I mean, just like in the writing community, it's great to connect in person with other writers. It is phenomenal to connect with my colleagues and friends and colleagues, because Jim and Dan are both friends and colleagues. I love them both very much. I'm looking forward to just getting to hang out with them in person as opposed to messages on Slack, etc. And speaking of that in-person event, this past weekend, I was at DreadCon in Burlington, Ontario, and it was a horror-themed single-day event. And you know what? I sold a lot of books. I'm very happy. Made my table back and more. Connected with new readers and existing readers who came back for other books. But more than that, even just beyond the the sales and the fun that I had, because it's all horror people, and I got to moderate a really fun panel on Canadian horror, with you probably recognize Nick Cutter or Craig Davidson. He writes under both names. His real name's Craig, but the horror novel's under Nick Cutter, as well as C.M. Forrest and Marcus Hawk. Phenomenal panel with some really great, insightful, intelligent horror writers. But anyways, I just got to connect and reconnect with really cool, awesome people. Saw Gord Rollo, a horror friend of mine. I don't think I've seen him in 11 years. Across from me was my friend, local author Rick Hipson, and Dean Italiano and Gio Italiano, good friends, local authors as well, and creators. Gio's a musician and Dean is the writer. But Angelique Fons came down from Barrie as an awesome horror person. You probably remember her being on this podcast before. And she came down and helped me at my booth and brought a few of her books, and we had them available for sale there as well. It was just great to get to hang out with her as well. And again, reconnect with so many other people. Saw Ado Van Belkom there, saw Michael Kelly, saw so many people. And it's just a reminder of, beyond the sales, beyond all those other things, just being in the presence of really cool people that you admire and have so much in common with, our passion for writing, our passion for horror, etc. just feels so absolutely amazing. And so, yes, it's exhausting. I'm going to be doing a lot of travel in the next few weeks. But the exhaustion and the 5-hour layover in Chicago and having to get up at 3:30 or 4 in the morning to get on the highway to get into the airport at ridiculous hours and getting home at midnight or 2 in the morning is all worthwhile because of the people. It really is my connection to people. And that's the reason I love this podcast so much. It's a connection with you. No, it's not in person, but every once in a while we connect and we chat in person, etc. But it's a reminder of the value of people and the love and respect that I have for people. We spend so much of our time ranting into echo chambers in social media and believing that the world is scary and there's a lot of really horrible things taking place. But whenever I connect with people in person, it reminds me of the goodness of people. It reminds me of the value of that connection that you have with real people, as opposed to being a keyboard warrior, constantly angry at every possible thing out there. I just recently did an interview. It's going to be for a forthcoming episode, and the reason I wanted to interview this other podcaster was because of the positivity that they're putting out into the world. And I'm just saying this to remind myself that yes, I am frustrated and angry about certain things. I mean, if you're a longtime listener, I make no secret of the things that annoy and frustrate and anger me and make me really upset and sad. But it's also really important to remember the good, and that there's so many amazing, wonderful people out there. And I get to hang out with them, and I'm really lucky and I'm privileged that I get this opportunity to connect with so many amazing people. I am so lucky and I'm so honored that you're listening to this podcast. Thank you for putting your faith in me. Thank you for listening. But that's it for the personal update. As I mentioned, I'm on the road this week, so I'm trying to get this recorded and out the door so it can go live at, its usual bat time, its usual bat channel. And so I'll be back next week with another episode. Well, of course, that'll be after the reflection. But right now, what you're probably most interested in is hearing that softly playing bumper that I've reduced the volume on and getting right into this interview with John Gaspard. Hey, John, welcome to the Stark Reflections podcast.
I am delighted to be here. I am a longtime listener and a big fan of what you do on this podcast. I wish there were more like this podcast. I like the reality.
Keep going, John. Stop.
I can spend the whole time talking about how much I like the podcast, because I really do. I like the reality that you bring. And I'm just going to point out one episode that really sticks out in my mind, and I'm sure you remember it, and I'm so glad you did it. You had just spent hours working on something and it disappeared or failed, and you let us hear your frustration at how things weren't going right. And so many podcasts are about everything going right that you think, oh, when it goes wrong for me, I must be the anomaly, when in fact, everything going right is the anomaly and things going wrong is what
Right.
happens all the time. And it's just really refreshing to hear your candid take on the ups and downs of self-publishing.
Oh, I appreciate that. Now, I was trying to remember, was that one I did for my patrons or was it a
Nope.
regular
It was
episode?
just a regular one, and
Yeah.
you literally just hit record and said, "I am so angry at what just happened," and the next 20 minutes or so were that
I
rant, and
rambled.
it
Yeah, I rambled to my frustration and got it out of my system and then went back to the
exactly.
manuscript.
But it was so
Yeah,
helpful to hear
thank you.
that.
No,
Yeah,
I'm glad to hear that. But we are not here to talk about me. We're here to talk about, so you have, I mean, well, before we get into it, we have a really cool story that I can't wait to share with my listeners. But before we get into that, let's dig a little in behind the page of
yeah.
John Gaspard. So tell us a little bit about yourself and even the podcast that you have and what it's related to.
Sure. I was a independent filmmaker for years. I worked in corporate America, but in my spare time, made a bunch of very low budget movies and had a great time doing it and highly recommend that. And then as I got a little older and I got a little tired carrying all the equipment and getting up early every morning and making lunch for everybody, I switched into novel writing. Which is something I'd always planned on doing. That
Right.
toward my golden years, I would do that. So I have a couple series. I have a 10-book series about a magician named Eli Marks and the crimes he stumbles into and how he uses his skills as a professional magician to sort of figure things out. And then a 3-book series called the Como Lake Players Mystery Series, which is about a community theater in St. Paul here. And murders keep, every time they do a show, someone gets murdered. So they're pretty standard but funny, cozy mysteries. Um, and the podcast came about. It's called Behind the Page, the Eli Marks podcast, because I wanted to. In my corporate work, I'd done a lot of work on the word free and what free means to people and the value of free. And I wanted to give something to people so that they would get interested in the series. And I had at that point, I think, 8 audiobooks to go with that point, the 8 Eli Marks books at that point,
What, you had 8 audiobooks ready to go at that point?
ready to go.
Okay, so you
And
had an audio audience that you
yep,
were oh, this is brilliant.
they were already out there, but I thought, let's rather than just post them all by themselves, let's do something else. So every episode, we're just finishing season 5 now, has generally 24 episodes, and in each episode, you can hear one full chapter from that season's book. But
Wow.
you also would hear an interview with someone connected with magic or entertainment, or just somebody who's interesting.
Right.
So we've had like Dick Cavett, the amazing Kreskin, Teller of Penn and Teller was on, and
Like the magicians no one's heard of. Yeah.
yes, but also magicians that you've never heard of that if you were a magician, you'd go, wow, you got to talk to Rob Zabrecki or you got to talk to Carissa
Oh,
Hendricks
so
and
insider stuff.
insider
Yeah.
stuff. And they don't give away magic tricks, but they do talk about the day-to-day life of what it's like to be a performer and entertainer, which applies to a wider group. So I do it with a co-host who also is the narrator of all my books. So it kind of segues nicely from
Oh,
us
and that's
chatting
a
right
nice
in,
little behind
I'll
the
say,
scenes.
yeah,
Yeah, I
I'll
love
say,
that.
Jim, let's read the next chapter. And although he read that chapter 5 years ago, it doesn't really matter.
It's
But what
the
I
mise en scène of a podcast, right?
exactly, people buy into it. But what I found almost immediately, and I can't quantify this with numbers because I'm terrible with numbers, but audiobook sales went up right away when I started the series.
Oh
And
yeah, I
I
can imagine.
and it
Yeah.
wasn't just that season's audiobook where people went, "Oh, I don't want to wait another whatever episodes. I want to hear the thing now." But it also led over to the other ones. And so it's been a really fun way to market the books without blatantly marketing them.
Right.
People have said to me, "Why don't you have commercials on your podcast?" And I say, the whole podcast is a commercial.
Right.
That
Yeah.
would be redundant. But it's really fun. And as you know, podcasts are not an easy thing to put together, and they do take to
Yeah.
do them nicely. Like you edit and I edit, and we don't just record something and throw it up there. It does take time, so they're certainly time consuming. But every conversation is fascinating. We just talked to a guy who's in his 70s who has a PhD in shuffling cards.
What?
Yes. What it really is,
Wow.
it's a PhD in how to create randomness.
Ah.
Um, and as soon as he got out of school, he was picked up by the CIA and hired because they need someone who can do that kind of thinking. He didn't go into a lot of detail about what he did, but the concept of how do you achieve randomness. Uh, since then, other people have gotten PhDs in it, but he was the first one to do that. So we get a lot of
Wow.
really interesting folks, and it's just fun. It's time consuming, but fun.
Well, and I want to dig into something you said because I think it's so important to talk about this because the biggest challenge authors often have is, I mean, nobody wakes up wanting to be marketed to. Oh, I can't wait to be marketed to today. Right.
Yeah.
So your podcast, while it is an advertisement, is not solely, hey, everyone go buy my series,
Nope.
go check this out. You're providing insightful, intriguing conversation, content behind the scenes that a percentage of the people who listen, like people who listen to it, get great value out of it, and then there's going
Mhm.
to be other people who go, oh, and I love to read that kind of stuff, and now I discovered a new author.
Yep.
Right.
Yes. And one of the things I do that I learned from a really good podcast called Script Notes, which is a couple of pretty successful screenwriters sitting around chatting about the screenwriting process, is, and I'm sure lots of other podcasts do this, but I index it. So there's a menu so that if you're a listener and you don't want to listen to the interview, you just want to listen to the chapter, you just hit a button on your player and it takes you right to the chapter, which
Oh, that's smart.
as a listener myself, I tried to find best practices before I started the podcast. That was one of them, the idea of editing conversations, because
Yeah.
5 years ago, there were a lot of podcasts that came out where they just hit record and then they hit stop and they put it up. And I think that wastes people's time. I think you really
Yeah.
should get just the key information and then let them get on with their day.
So hang on, this is a divergent discussion that I wasn't expecting, but so the indexing, because I can imagine there's people who are like, oh my God, I don't want to hear Mark's personal update. Let's get to the interview, or
Yep.
or I don't want the ad read or
Right.
whatever. How hard is indexing?
It's just it's one more step in the process.
Right.
And I have a little program that when I've done all the futzing with it and added the music and
Oh, the bumpers
done
and
that,
stuff. Okay.
then I can just put in markers and I name the markers. And I'm working on a program called Twisted Wave, which is a really very simple audio editing program, not many bells and whistles, which is what I wanted. But I
Right.
can put in what either 5 or 6 markers, whatever it is, and then it goes into a program that makes it into a podcast where you upload it into the program, you put in your cover image, you put in all your podcast notes that you want people to be able to see, all the links and all that,
Right.
and it shows you here's your 6 segments that you flagged. Are those correct? And then you say yes, turn that into a podcast, and it gives you the final file that then you would upload to whoever your RSS thing is. I go through Squarespace, so it's really, really very simple. I just upload it and say this is a
Right.
podcast. But it is one more step, but it is so helpful, at least I think for people. As a listener, I want that.
Right. Yeah.
But I don't, the podcasts that I listen to, like yours and Joanna Penn, I I don't know if I wouldn't even care if you're doing that because I listen to the whole thing, so it doesn't matter. I wouldn't skip
Right.
around. Um, but there are others where it would be helpful.
Yeah, where you want to just get to this particular point.
Yep.
Well, maybe if you've heard that there's like an hour-long conversation and there's only this part that is pertaining to you and you don't have time. Thank you for sharing that and keep me apprised of the software that you're talking about.
I'll send you a link.
So, all right, we've talked a lot about whether it's magicians on stage or other stage thing. And it's kind of like, hey, if people keep getting murdered in this theater, well, stop putting on plays.
Well, that might be
So
why
I
it's
just,
only 3 books long at this point.
yeah, okay. It's kind of like it's the old what was the Angela Lansbury
Oh, the
show?
Murder She Wrote thing. Yeah, she had to
Yeah,
keep
the
going
murder
out of
shearer is kind
town.
of like this small town has more murders per capita. But anyways, that's the joy of cozy.
It is.
But theater and that idea of people gathering to see something is kind of the project that we wanted to chat mostly about today.
Yes, and the reason I wanted to talk to you about it was because I think it's something that your listeners and you would want to reflect on. And it is driven partially by today's technology and the ability to create beautiful books and it's driven by the. I wanted to do something about my favorite movie, Harold and Maude. And I'll be honest here, Mark. One of the first things I did was I bought your Die Hard book. And I read through that and I went, okay, that's great for Mark, but that's not what I want to do. That's
Right.
perfect for what that is, but that's not what I want to do. What I want is I want a big coffee table book and I want it filled as much with images as with words. I want to make a
Right.
beautiful book that celebrates this movie, Harold and Maude. Now, there are a couple books out there already about the movie Harold and Maude, which came out in 1971 and was sort of a flop when it came out. Well, not sort of, it was a flop when it came out. Someone has written a book, a detailed book of the making of it, and someone else has written a book about the reflections on it. And I didn't want to do either one of those books. I wanted to do a book that only I could do. And I realized in looking at the history of Harold and Maude, it came to Minneapolis in March of 1972 after failing at the end of 71 in a downtown theater. And it came to a small suburban theater, which was my local theater, the Westgate Theater. And it started there in March of 72, and it stayed until June of 74, over 2 years. And it became, because it did that, it became a cult film because other cities realized, hey, Minneapolis was running this movie for 9 months, a year and a half, 2 years. What's going on? And they would use that as their advertising. You know, Detroit would, a theater there would start showing Harold and Maude, and they'd say, what does Minneapolis know that we don't know? And New York used the same thing, and Boston used the same thing. And eventually, after 1974, it did play in lots of other theaters, and it became a cult film. But it became that particularly because of the time it spent at the Westgate. And I was there. I went to, saw it many times as when I was in junior high and then in senior high, when they had the 2 year anniversary of the film. The two stars of the movie, Academy Award winner Ruth Gordon and Bud Cort, came to town. And I knew someone who worked for the paper, and he invited me to come to dinner with Bud Cort. So it's just the three of us sitting
Yeah.
at a steakhouse
Oh my
chatting
God.
about stuff. And I followed them around on all their press stuff that day. They had a limo. I was using the Metro Transit buses to get there, and I had my Super 8 camera, and I documented it with footage that nobody else has. And I thought, okay, this is what I want to do: is look at that 2 years. Because it was fascinating. It was at the 2 year anniversary, neighbors showed up with picket signs that said, we want a new movie. They were just incensed that the same movie had been there for 2 years because, and stop me if I'm going on too long here, because we were right at that point when multiplexes were starting to open, but they weren't everywhere. And
Right.
the concept of the neighborhood theater existed. And the neighborhood theater was a theater that was usually within walking distance of your home. They probably didn't have a parking lot because they didn't need it. And every week you'd go see the movie at the local theater, or if you were
Right.
a
Yeah.
mom, you'd send your kids to the Saturday matinee. Um, and they didn't have that. And they didn't have that for over 2 years. And although
So
it was,
that's the only movie they played for
it
two
was the
years.
only movie they
It's
played
not
for
like they
2 years.
had three
Nope.
screens.
No,
Wow.
not at all. It was the one theater. So as I dove into it, I thought, well, how did this happen? And that allowed me to go into research about where the theater came from and why it was built and who built it and what
Yeah.
happened to him, which was kind of tragic, all the way through why did it close in 1977 and everything between. So it became this history of not only the theater, but of the movie and what happened to each of them after they separated. And I thought it's a book only I can write, and that's what I wanted to do. And that's why I
Yeah.
wanted to talk to you today was I couldn't have written this book 20 years ago. The technology did not exist
Right.
for me to go to Bookvault and say, I want a 165-page book where there is full page color and black white photos on every page, and it's got to be reasonably priced, semi-reasonably priced. It's a coffee table book. It's a little pricey. Couldn't have done that. So now I can do that. I have access to incredible research online where if I find a quote from the screenwriter saying, well, we opened this theater in Santa Monica and it seemed to do okay. And boom, I can find the movie ad and the review from 1971 when that happened. So I had access to all this stuff. It's like the perfect time to do
Wow.
the book that only I can do. And I just encourage people to do more of that because that's what makes us human.
Oh my God. So I want to dig more into the book, but before we get into that, I want to go back to you said you were in junior high. Did you become a fan of the movie because of the Westgate Theater, or were you already a fan and it was like, oh, right on every day,
Nope.
man? No.
No, I became a fan of the movie because I heard I should go see it, probably from an older sibling.
Right.
And it would have been spring of my ninth grade year at Anthony Junior High. And it
Wow.
was walking distance theater. I probably rode my bike. And I went on a Saturday night, 7 or 7:30 show, and went back again the next afternoon, primarily because I had missed so much because the theater was full and there was so much laughing going on that I'd missed.
You had to say, what did I miss while they were alive?
Yes,
Oh my God. So
exactly.
the very, and okay, so I want to go back to, because I remember this time period in my life going to see movies was a bit more challenging. We had to drive. It was an hour
Mhm.
long drive. So you needed someone with a driver's license. You needed someone to borrow a parent's car. And I remember going to see the same movie again when we had choices then, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Was a pretty dramatic thing because my parents would be like, but you already spent $5 on this movie
Mhm.
yesterday. Why do you want to spend $5 or whatever it was, 250 or whatever,
Yeah.
whatever the cost was back then?
Well, back then, boy, we sound like a couple old guys chatting here.
Maybe we are.
But this was, for me, this was pre-VHS.
Yes.
So if you wanted to see a movie, you had to go see it. If you wanted to go see it again, you had to go back, you had to find it again. And there were movies that popped up that disappeared that I had to wait years and years and years to see.
Right.
When they'd show up on TV, they'd be all cut up. There'd be commercials.
Right.
You you know the
Edited for the square screen.
edited for the square screen, edited for language, and it really wasn't the movie. And so, if you wanted to go see, Earthquake again, why I wanted to see it more than once, I don't know. But you had to go downtown and see it before it left. Like a movie like The Conversation showed up downtown. I remember at that point I'm in high school. We went and saw it a couple times, three, four times. Phantom of the Paradise showed up downtown. We went and saw it many times, and then it was gone. It
Yeah.
was gone until it came out on VHS. So you had to go again and again if you wanted to have that, the comforting experience of sitting down and watching. Let's watch the entire run of Cheers again. You can do that these days, and you have that comfort viewing.
Oh, you've been paying attention to what I've been up to.
Are you binging something now?
No,
Are you binging?
I'm just about to finish the last season of Cheers because I'm working on a book
Mm.
about that TV series.
Well, you might want to cut this part, but if you want, I can put you in touch with Ken Levine, who was one of the writers on that show, and is
Oh my
someone
God,
I've
that would
I've
be
I've interviewed him a
wow.
few times, and Ken is a
No, I would love to. That would be amazing.
okay.
Thank you.
I
Appreciate
will
that.
let me make a note to send you Ken
See,
Levine.
and I'm not going to cut this from the podcast because this is an example of how networking and connecting and talking to other writers can benefit because we have no idea. We had no idea. I had no idea John knew Ken Levine.
Well, now that I'm thinking of it, I also know Fief Sutton, who
Oh my
who's
God, she was a producer on the show, wasn't she?
he was a producer. Fief,
Oh, sorry. Whoops.
no, that's okay. He has the weirdest name, and he admits it. I interviewed them both. I was doing, boy, we're just going to veer off topic
We're
here all day.
nerding out
That's
about
okay.
old.
I was doing I'd done a series of books called The Popcorn Principles, which was about taking things I'd learned as a screenwriter and a TV writer and applying them to my novels because
Wait,
there's a
are
lot
they
of
still
stuff.
available?
They are. There's a whole series of them, and
Oh
one
my
of them.
God, like, we're gonna have links to those in the show notes.
Okay,
Oh my God, I
the
can't
the
wait to check them out.
the
Sorry,
fourth one in it is
sidetrack again.
called the Popcorn Principles Strike Back, and in it I have interviews with a dozen or so screenwriters and TV writers who also wrote movies. And Ken Levine had written movies, and Fief Sutton had written movies. And I talked to Nicholas Meyer, who wrote all the Sherlock Holmes stuff, but he also wrote Wrath of Khan and Time After Time and directed those movies. A lot of
Wow.
great screenwriters who also write novels, like John August, who hosts the Script Notes podcast I mentioned earlier, where I learned
Yeah,
about
yeah.
indexing. He wrote a ton of stuff for Tim Burton, and they've also written novels. So it's called the Popcorn Principles Strike Back. And the nice thing about it, speaking of free, coming back to that, is if you buy the book, there's a link in it that takes you to the free audiobook where rather than read my transcriptions of what they said, you can just listen to them
Oh my God, that is
Listen to these
amazing.
reviews.
I love the tangents we've gone on. This is we're the two of us could be dangerous
I know,
in
I
conversation.
know. You're the one who has to edit, not me. So I'm going to
I know,
hopefully
I know.
dive in a
I'm
little
sorry.
less.
Okay, so I'll try to bring us back since I keep taking us off direction. So the book we're talking about is called Held Over, Harold and Maude at the Westgate Theater, and it's not a standard, text-based. It is. You mentioned Bookvault, which means it's got to be pretty spectacular, and
Yeah.
I've seen digital.
Mhm.
Images and sneak peeks and stuff. I mean, this is a gorgeous coffee table book. So that seems like way too much work.
Well, um, okay. Well, my philosophy of writing has always been that I'm writing for me. I'm the audience,
Okay, all right.
and I hope other people are interested. My Eli Mark's books are written for me. Golden Lake Players books are written for me. I'm the probably the person who I focus on. Would John like this? It's sort of a schizophrenic way to work,
Are you
but
Tabitha King in this case?
I am not. But my feeling is if you put your heart into something that you really love and that fascinates you, you're never going to have mass appeal on anything anyway, but you're going to find a group of people who, are your tribe who go, that's exactly the thing I love. So with the Harold and Maude book, which is the most expensive book I've ever done, and my wife deserves all the credit for saying, go ahead and do that. Because normally a novel, you know what a novel costs. You got to pay for editing and a cover, and you can keep the cost down. I've got 168 pages. Every one of them has a photo on it. Most of the photos had to be licensed.
Oh my
Another
God.
thing I learned from you in your Die Hard book, where I saw at the bottom it said courtesy of Alame. I think I'm saying that right.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't.
and if I hadn't seen,
Alame.
yeah, if I hadn't seen that in your book, I wouldn't have known about them. And the same photo that you find on Getty Images for $350 is on Alame for $39, and
Yes.
it's the same licensing thing. So I was able to make it more reasonably priced, but I wanted something that, as I told my
Well,
designer, I
that
just
probably
want you.
amounted to thousands of dollars in
I
difference, considering how many photos you had to
Right.
use.
Well, here's what I did. I found via Allied, the Association of whatever I belonged.
Yeah, Alliance of
Figure,
Independent Authors.
yeah,
Yeah.
there you go. An attorney who gave me a free 15-minute consultation. I explained to her what I was doing, and I said, I know fair use comes into this somewhat, but I want to know where are the lines so I know I'm doing it right because I'm going to have over 160 photos in this book,
Yeah.
plus ads from old movie ads from newspapers. And she said, here's kind of just the basic. If somebody is licensing that photo, if there's an organization that is charging money for you to use that photo, go ahead and do that, and you're going to be covered because you licensed it.
Yeah.
If you can't find anyone who's licensing it, if there's no copyright on it, if it's something that's flooded the internet and no one is claiming it as a licensable object, you can use that under fair use, but you need to transform it. And that would mean either putting a caption on it or making it so obvious that it is illustrating a point from the book. It's right next to a paragraph and it's saying something about
Right.
it. That would qualify as transformative. And she said, you're never going to be 100% safe. But if you follow those guidelines, if someone is licensing it, pay for it. If no one is, then make sure you're transforming it. And
Wow.
that was the rule of thumb that I went by. And well, we'll see. I'll talk to you from jail if it didn't work out.
Okay, but I mean, in addition to the licensing and also the photos you mentioned being able to take,
Yeah.
which you licensed yourself,
Yeah.
but the research. Let's talk about the research. I mean, because again, yes, this is something you love, you adore, and so the research was fun, I'm sure, but
Mhm.
it was work too, right?
Um, if you're really enjoying it, how much is it work? It was fascinating because just like this conversation, I ended up going down a lot of different rabbit holes because I knew for sure I wanted to cover those 2 years and 4 months or whatever it is. I wanted to cover the protest. I wanted to cover there was a guy who saw the movie over 160 times who turned up in the newspaper a lot. I wanted to track him down.
Did he
But
see
that
it at the Westdale Theater?
uh,
Or
he He did sometimes. At the same time it was showing in St. Paul, but it came and went in St. Paul, whereas it stayed at the Westgate
For 2 years, yeah.
for 2 years. So, but then I had to figure out, well, okay, how did the Westgate get to this point? So you have to go back and go, well, where did it come from? And then you're going to historical societies. There's a couple. There's Minnesota Historical Society. There's the Edina Historical Society where the theater was located. And you start digging and you find out, oh, this guy who built it knew nothing about movies. He was a violinist for the Minneapolis Orchestra, went to England and worked there for years, met a woman, got married, came back, had 2 kids, realized he couldn't make a living playing violin. So he went into the insurance business, was very successful, and decided, oh, I'm going to build a movie theater right here in South Minneapolis, right off across the street from the streetcar line, which is actually very smart because that's how people would get there. And it's going to be a show place. I'm going to have a stage big enough to have an orchestra. I'm going to have a separate room, big space attached to the lobby where you can have parties and club meetings and card meetings. I'm going to have a candy store attached on the other side so that once you bought your ticket, you can go into the candy store, which you could also get from the outside if you wanted, and get popcorn and candy. I'm going to do all these things. That's what he was doing in 1935. I was an usher there in 1975, and what I saw was really worn out theater with the same carpet they'd had in from 1935, worn seats. They'd moved the screen forwards. There wasn't any space on stage really you could kind of stand, but that was it. You wouldn't fit an orchestra there. There was no club room off the lobby. There was a beauty salon next door, but it wasn't connected to the theater at all. There was no candy store off the lobby. There was a tiny library, but it wasn't connected to the theater. And so I had to dig as to how did this happen? What happened to the candy store? What happened to the club room? What happened to the guy who started the theater? And why did it decline so quickly? And that was because he died a year after he opened it. So it was his dream. And we've all heard these stories of, boy, now this feels kind of weird because this book is my dream too, where someone does their dream and then they die right after. And so the theater was adrift. It was sold to a competitor. It just became kind of a little neighborhood theater where you'd see second run movies, and that's all it did for 40 years until Harold and Maude turned up. And it might have closed before Harold and Maude. They had two other movies that had semi-long runs before that. The Mel Brooks movie, The 12 Chairs, ran for, ironically, 12 weeks. And then Where's Papa came in there and ran for 36 weeks. And they kind of thought, oh, this is a theater that we can stick these little odd comedies and see what happens. And they did
Right,
that with
right.
Harold and Maude, and it just ran and ran and ran. I think otherwise they would have shut it down.
Wow. Wow.
So the research was fantastic. I mean, I just kept finding stuff.
Yeah, uncovering all these interesting tidbits that are related to the wow.
Stuff that, I'm not a researcher like that. I mean, I was able to go to an architectural library at the University of Minnesota where they had all the original plans for the theater. They had the first plans, which was made it a
Right.
1,000-seat theater, which was too big, and the second plans, and
Hmm.
there was going to be called this, and then it got changed. It's just fun rabbit holes to go down. Now, this is not a money-making operation for me. None of the books have been. They break even or do better than that. But I'm not one of those writers who's trying to make his own living at it. So I can
Right.
approach these things differently than someone who wants to make a living at it. And I
Right.
recognize that.
I want to get into some of the logistics of the research. So you got all these great stories and rabbit holes, and you're having fun with whatever.
Mhm.
But there comes a time where you have to decide, is this going to make the final cut? Just
Yep.
like in filmmaking. It's like,
Yep.
oh yeah, I love the scene, I love this character development, but it's got to go.
Yep.
So, because you have a page limit, because the expense of putting together a book like this, right? That special
Well,
kind of paper and all that, right?
yeah, I'm using the best paper. I never really put a limit on it as to
Okay.
how long it could be. It was going to be as long as it needed to be. But I did have to, because I wanted it to be a pretty equal mix of images and text. For example, there's a hamburger place right across the street from the theater called the Convention Grill that was built around the same time.
Right.
And the same family still owns it. And so I talked to the grandson about it and his memories of it. And I said, I'd love to just, dig through your files of photos you have of the building and all of it over the years. And he said, we don't have anything. We don't have anything of
Oh wow.
photographs. And I thought, well, okay, that would have been a nice little sidebar, couple page box thing about, but I
Hmm.
don't have any images, and I'm just not going to go that way.
Okay.
So if there weren't images, I couldn't go that way. Uh, it it was an interesting process finding stuff in historical research libraries because all they've done, for example, if I wanted to find a photo of, there's a famous photo people find online all the time of the protesters standing in front of the theater at the second year anniversary holding their signs. And it's from the Star Tribune newspaper from whatever it was, March 22nd, 1974. So I go digging through literally boxes of stuff that have manila envelopes inside, and inside that are smaller manila envelopes, and it'll say Keefe, March 22, 1974. And that meant their photographer, whose last name was Keefe, that's everything he shot on that day with no other attribution. So you have
Wow.
20 rolls of proofs, negatives. I'm looking at negative after and looking at the negative, trying to figure out, is that the theater? No, that's a softball game. So you end up going through a lot of stuff and then finding someone's been there before you and things that should be there aren't. But then also finding, like for the first year anniversary, just Ruth Gordon came for the first year anniversary, and I found pictures that they took that they never published, which are
Right.
great pictures, which appear in the book for the first time. So because I didn't have a hard schedule, and I certainly didn't, I mean, I had a semi budget, I was able to spend as much time as I needed until I got what I felt was the whole story from 1935 to 1977.
How long did that end up being?
About a year,
Oh,
on and
okay.
off,
All right.
about a year. It wasn't, yeah.
It wasn't like a 10-year project.
No, like I said, I couldn't have done it 25 years ago, although it sure would have been nice to have some of the people alive who are no longer
Right. You could
alive
have talked to,
that I
yeah.
could have
Wow.
talked to. But, I was able to cull quotes from tons of interviews over the years, and then I
Right.
just attribute the quotes in the back of the book. So you read what appears to be a continuous thought from somebody, and then you go to the back of the book and find out, oh, that those three sentences were from three different interviews, and they've all
Oh,
come
I
together.
see. Yeah.
So tracking all that
More of
was
that
a
magic of filmmaking.
yes, yes, it was. Scrivener is a huge help for that sort of thing. And back in the day when we were editing on film, you would have what was called a trim bin, where if you cut something out, you would put it on a little hook and hang it in the trim bin because you might need to go back and grab some more frames or something. And Scrivener is like having the best digital trim bin in the world because it all.
I'm sure the people from Scrivener would love that quote.
Oh, it was hugely helpful because I had, I think, 150 sources I was drawing from for
Right.
interviews,
Wow.
and being able to just have them right there. In the past, when I've done some of my earlier filmmaking books that had a lot of interviews, doing the same sort of thing where I'm mixing interviews I've done with past interviews the same person has had, and I've got to track where each sentence is coming from.
Right.
That was a lot harder when everything was just on Word and you're going opening different documents, blah, blah, blah. With Scrivener, it's just there it is, boom, open it up, got it, go to
Wow.
the next thing. It was very helpful.
So you talk about I mean, you've got the research, you've got the cost of licensing and getting, and even the costs of going and doing this research, right? It's not, you know, you also had to make it look as beautiful as possible.
Yeah,
And you've got the collaboration you had to do with designers, I imagine, was also an expense.
it was. It was, although they were remarkably economical about it, I think because it was an exciting project for them. It's a group called Design for Writers, and they've done virtually every cover I've ever done for any one of my books.
Oh,
They
wow.
work
Okay.
they work in the UK. I've never met them. I've never talked to them. I've emailed them, and they did send me a video of one of them paging through a proof of the book, but I only saw their hands, so I don't know what they look like. I don't know what
Yeah.
they sound like, but they're very nice people, and they did a great job designing the book. The process was, and I did do a very good job of giving them information. I mean, everything was very well marked and where all the pictures went, and all the pictures were numbered. So it was very easy for them to find all this stuff. It was a ton of stuff, but and they just would, let's, do you like this look? What don't you like about that? How do you like this for headlines? How do you like this for captions? Here's a rough proof of this kind of treatment, a box treatment. Here's this rough proof of that. Signing off on all those, and then them saying, okay, we'll be back with you in a couple weeks with your book. I mean, I thought we'd do it chapter by chapter, but that's not how it went. Two
Yeah.
weeks later, I get a PDF and open it up. It's like, oh, wow, there's the book. And then you just go through with minor, a sentence got lost here, or this picture is much rarer than the other picture on that same page. So let's make the rare one much bigger because the Harold and Maude fans, when they flip through it, are going to freak out when they see that picture, but they're not going to freak out when they see that one because they've seen that one a million times. But this one
Right.
they've never seen before.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
and that was one of the things that I stumbled into. I mean, the Alame thing that you led me to was hugely helpful because they are the least expensive and very easy to use source for that sort of thing. But I tracked down via Google image search. There was an image from Harold and Maude back behind the scenes I'd never seen before. And
Right.
by using Google image search, they said, no, it's from this weird little stock house. And so I wrote to
Right.
them and said, what do you have on Harold and Maude? And they said, oh, we've got a ton of stuff on Harold and Maude. You'd have to be more specific. And I
And you're
said, what
like,
would
oh
it
boy.
what would it cost to see what you have? And the guy, it was like, I don't know, $150, but they put it against anything I got. And they had, Mark, they had rolls of behind the scenes production stills
Oh
that no
wow.
one had ever seen because nobody
Oh
wanted them.
man.
And
Wow.
they they made a digital proof for me. And I went through, and from that, I said, okay, John, you can spend $1,000 because they're $100 each. You can spend $1,000.
Yeah.
You get 10. What are the 10 that absolutely reinforced things in the book? And it ended up being 11 because they still owed me $150. Maybe it was 12. So I went from that high pricing to other places like a place called Everett was, I think, $65 a piece down to
Right.
Alame. And so if,
Yeah.
for example, the last chapter in the book is here's the Westgate Theater, what they tried to do to recreate Harold and Maude. Here are the movies they ran from 74 to 77.
Yeah.
And I was able to go, these are the 6 movies I want to talk about, go to Alame first and see what they have. And then if you go, well, okay, I've got everything, but I don't have this one at all covered. Then you go to Everett and
Yeah.
go, I'm going to pay more, but I'll be able to get that photo. And it's just a lot of
Yeah.
back and forth and a lot of note taking and keeping track.
Oh, for sure. And I have to let you know, so something that happened in the last several months was Alamy reached out to me to let me know that one of the images I had licensed, I think it was from Die Hard,
Hmm.
is no longer going to be available as of this date.
Okay.
So that requires me to go and update my files. Now, I can't do anything about the books that have already been printed,
Right.
but again, the license usually is for X many copies. And
Yep.
so, but I know that after this date, I will have to either relicense the same image from a different site
Hmm.
or replace it.
Right.
And they were nice about offering a suggested replacement too, which was I just love the fact that they reached out to let me know,
Yeah.
and it wasn't me having to learn this and then get sued.
No, that was great. I hope I don't get any of those emails though.
But
I
I
got a
did like
lot
their
of them.
customer service, right? Like,
Mhm.
hey, you've paid for this image, and then again, you go back and I keep track of the copies that have been printed and sold, and then I go, okay, I have to I have to relicense. I'm close to the next realm for my Canadian mounted book
Mhm.
because that just keeps selling darn.
Yeah.
And so it's like, oh, I have to relicense these now again for the next 3,000 copies. That's
That's so sad for you. I'm
yeah, I
so
know it's such a
sorry.
sad thing. But again, it's only I think 75 US an image, so it's not
Hmm.
a heartbreaking amount of money. So, but so that your costs were incredible, but you did do some crowdsourcing for those passionate players. You ran a Kickstarter for this,
I
didn't you?
ran a Kickstarter, yes, and it was successful insofar as it hit its goal, but I made the goal very low.
Right.
Just thinking it would get me toward audiences I might not otherwise be able to find.
Well, because that the real passionate fans would want to have this, and right.
Right. But a lot of the real passionate ones weren't there or didn't want it, which is fine. But what it did do for me was I was able to create a really good book trailer with,
Oh, because you had to create the trailer for
right.
the
So
Kickstarter.
with minor variations, it now becomes the book trailer that doesn't mention Kickstarter. I had to put
Right.
together all kinds of imagery for the books, which I would have done at some point, but at that point it was all ready to go. All sorts of written stuff about it. So by the time I did the Kickstarter campaign and the book was just about heading toward printing, I had all the marketing stuff that I needed for the book because Kickstarter had made me do it. So that was very helpful. I don't know
Uh-huh.
if I would have had quite as an elaborate book trailer, but I needed an elaborate book trailer because I had to show people what this book was going to be.
Right, right.
So in that end, it was really good. I was surprised that I didn't get more Harold and Maude fans wanting it, but I certainly, I'm happy to take the
Well, maybe
money.
they're not on Kickstarter,
Well,
right?
that's just
So
it, and
that's the challenge, right?
that's the next thing is
Yeah.
finding those people.
So this book is going to be available. Look, when mid-September 2025, is that
Yeah,
correct? Okay.
around there. I'm still first time working with Bookvault, and they've been very, very nice. And one of the things I'd
Because
read
they're
about
printing in the UK.
it's printing in the UK and sending here. And one thing that I learned that is probably common knowledge, but was not common knowledge to me, was if you're doing a bespoke version of your book, because there's three versions. I have a paperback and I have a hardcover. Then I have a hardcover that has beautiful Harold and Maude end papers in it, and that's bespoke.
Oh, the
If you're
additional
doing
bonus.
that, they don't distribute that. They don't distribute their bespoke books. They're happy to make them for you.
Oh,
They're
those are
happy to
for
sell
you
them
and
to
your
you.
and your core
Right,
fans, right?
right.
Okay.
But the other books, the normal books, they will put into the distribution stream for you.
Right.
And one of the things I'd read somewhere about Book Vault was sometimes you have some hurdles to go over to get it out through them. Once that's solved, you're good. And
Yeah.
that's the point we're at right now where I'm going, hey guys, it's not on Amazon yet. It should be. And they're going, yeah, it probably should be. We'll check into that. So I think by mid-September, that'll all be fixed. But I also always have, my online store and people can buy all three versions there. So they're always going to be available. It's
So
just,
it's actually available now
yep,
through because you had to do for the Kickstarter, you had to have copies available.
had to have copies available. And
And is that can people order signed copies from your website?
if they want it signed, I'm happy to sign it for them. Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Cool.
I mean, it's not a great signature. I wouldn't want it, but if you do, that's fine. But it is the only place you can get the version with the Harold and Maude end papers, which is
And that's from you directly because
that's
those
for me
are the ones
direct.
you
Yeah.
had to import. Did you manage to make the import before the fees started?
It hasn't affected it yet. Maybe because I'm not buying huge numbers
Knock
all
on
at
wood.
once, knocking on wood.
Okay, all right,
Yeah,
knocking on wood there.
nothing there yet.
Okay, good stuff, good stuff.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, John. So, fascinating conversation. I know you and I could probably continue to talk for hours, but I do need to get close to wrapping this up. But the story, the one bit of advice. So, anyone who's listening to this, and you talked about this passion. I mean, you talked about seeing this movie in the theater and going back because you needed to see it, and then years later,
Mhm.
being able to come back to this passion and just make it available. And there are going to be people who are going to lose their minds going, oh my God, I've always wanted this book. They don't know that they've always wanted
Mhm.
this book. They've always wanted this book. What's advice that you would offer to writers who have that passion but haven't followed through?
It's going to take longer than you think. It's going to change as you go, and you have to be willing to go with it as it changes. There's a piece of advice that I spout all the time that I learned in an interview with a guy named Bob Odenkirk, who is he was Saul on Better Call Saul.
Oh my God, like Bob Odenkirk too?
Well,
Or
I've interviewed him. I've interviewed a lot of filmmakers over the years.
never heard of him.
No. Anyway, I asked him for the best advice he could give me, and it's advice that I've kept ever since. And his advice was don't hesitate to hesitate. And I said, what does that mean, Bob? He's a very thoughtful guy. He's not particularly funny in real life. He's just a very thoughtful guy. And he said, when you're working on something, there's a tendency to want to push it out right away. He said, when I'm shooting a movie and I'm done with a scene, there's a tendency to want to move on. And I want to give myself permission to hesitate. Take a minute, stop, think about it. Is there anything else I can do here in this scene? This is the only time everyone's going to be here, that all the lights are here, everything's ready. So don't hesitate to hesitate. Take that moment and see, is there anything else I can do here? And because as independent authors, and I'm sure you've run into this, Mark, you can finish the book and have it all done on Tuesday at noon and hit a button and it's on Amazon Tuesday at 4. I mean,
Yeah.
and it sometimes is best to don't hesitate to hesitate. Take a moment, sit on it for a week, double check stuff. I'm not saying don't ever do it, but just don't feel like you have to get it out there right this second. Take a moment, think about it. Is there anything else you want to do? Which, in the case of this book, I'm glad I did that because there were a couple acknowledgments that I'd missed. There was a photo that I needed to switch, that none of that would have happened if I had just said go. I was
Yeah.
going to just sit and wait and review it. So that's the advice I give all the time, is don't hesitate to hesitate.
Awesome. Awesome advice. Okay, so for any listeners who want to be able to get held over from you, or the Eli Marks mysteries, or the Cozy Theater mysteries, any of the stuff that you've written, the Popcorn Principles, where can they find out more about you and check out your books online, John?
You can find everything at albertsbridgebooks.com. That's Alberts Bridge Books, all one word, .com. And it has everything in the world there. Even my Greyhound books, everything is there.
Awesome. John, thanks so much for hanging out with me today and sharing your amazing story with us.
We'll have to do it again and just do more movie trivia back and forth.
Oh my God, that would be a lot of fun.
Oh, by the way, before you wrap, have you seen the John Candy documentary that's coming out?
No, and stupidly, I didn't know that a peon like me could buy tickets to go see it when it was at TIFF. I thought it was only for industry insiders, and it was 5 minutes before 6 p.m. when they were playing it, and I went, "Oh, I can get a ticket for $98," but it would take me 2 hours to drive to Toronto.
Yeah, that's not gonna happen.
And so I was like, "What an idiot I was that I didn't even think of this until the last minute."
Oh, I just
But
thought of you
I
because
can't wait to see it though. I will watch it probably 100 times
Yeah.
because I love Candy so much, and I love that they've put this together.
And the title of it is right out of Planes, Trains, and
Right out of
Automobiles.
Planes, and it's the perfect title.
You are the perfect audience for that movie. They made it.
Oh, this movie was made for me, and I don't care if anyone else watches it, but I'm going to enjoy it many
See,
times.
that's the feeling I'm going for.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Thanks again, John. It was a blast chatting with you.
Great. Thank you very much, Mark.
So just a few things I want to reflect on from this conversation with John. The first is just a reminder of, and I guess I talked about this at the beginning, is that value of connecting with people, but the value of networking and connecting with other writers, and this most magical thing of serendipity. So many of the opportunities and great things that have happened to me over the years have come from that community, that connection, and from serendipity. So, for example, in the middle of this chat, a conversation, John and I are talking about his book. We're just, as we, devolving and sidetracking and just having a wonderful time chatting. John mentions, I know this person who was involved in the production of Cheers. Let me connect them to you. So neither one of us, when we scheduled this conversation, this interview to talk about John's book, neither one of us knew this was going to happen. Neither one of us planned it. We didn't anticipate it. It came kind of out of the blue in serendipity. But that serendipity can only happen when you're connecting and authentically sharing. And I know I've been very lucky and very fortunate over the years due to serendipity, but I also know that you kind of have to make serendipity happen by being willing to be open and authentic and connect with other people. And I prefer the term connection and connecting rather than networking, because networking sounds sleazy and smarmy and scary, but connecting and community are what it's really about for me, and that's what makes it worthwhile. Because networking's scary, but that other stuff is heartwarming. So that and that helps me deal with that that anxiety that comes from networking. The other thing is passion project. It's just so much. It's just so much fun talking to John about his passion for Harold and Maude. Now, admittedly, and I know it's embarrassing, I have never seen this film, but I've never wanted to see the film so much as after talking to John about it. So I am making a point of going to watch this. Now, I'm coming up in a couple of weeks. I'm trying to watch some old, because I'm in Salt Lake FanX, and I'm on a panel talking about adaptations, Stephen King movie and film and TV adaptations. And so I'm trying really hard to go through and rewatch bits and remind myself, see things I haven't seen so I can talk better about it. Just like I've been going and reading books about Bill Watterson and Calvin and Hobbes for the 40 years of Calvin and Hobbes discussion, and going back and just thumbing through some of the old Calvin and Hobbes books I have and just reminding myself of why 40 years later I still love this so much. Anyways, I will go and watch Harold and Maude because it means so much to John, and his passion for that got me excited about this film. And actually it looks like an amazing film. I didn't really know much about it. It's like, Harold and Maude, what is it about? I had no idea. So after this recent conversation with John, I went and looked into it and I went, oh, this looks like it'd be a really great film. Obviously, it's a cult classic for a reason. So I'm going to check that out. But that passion that is just so enthusiastic and contagious is really cool. Now, John mentioned seeing me do a Die Hard book and the relation to he saw the Yippee-Ki-Yay and my passion for Die Hard, and he's like, oh, I can do something very similar. And I love that he did that. And it's so funny because at this conference I was at this last week, DreadCon, yes, I had all my, true ghost story books and my urban fantasy and horror and stuff like that there, and they did well. I sold mostly those books. But I also had my movie trivia books there. I had Yippee-Ki-Yay, and I had the Christmas Vacation book, and I had the Planes, Trains, and Automobiles book. And it was so funny because the way that the right audience, the way that the target audience people connected when they saw those books was phenomenal. And it was kind of like, I remember, a couple's like, oh, we got to get this for so-and-so for Christmas. So even if it wasn't for them, it was like they know that so-and-so watches this movie over and over again, so they want to get it. So anyways, for me, the experience of focusing on passion projects has been not only intrinsically rewarding and powerful for me just to spend time working on it, but it's also even more satisfying when I see that there are other nerds like me just as passionate about it. And that's a really cool thing. And I loved seeing that in John, and I know that's happened with people who are picking this book up and checking it out going, yes, this is for me. And I love when writers can do that, because you win when you finish writing the project, you've won. I love that. And then the last thing I want to reflect on is the advice that he was given. Don't hesitate to hesitate. That importance of stopping to take a breath. So this is great for book-related projects, but it's also a really good idea when there's something big happening in the world, right? So you see something, you want something, you have an idea, or you're really motivated and anxious and excited about it. But don't forget, it's okay to pause and take a breath. Maybe to digest the information that you've just learned about. Maybe to say, is this a really good idea? Which, you know what I mean? Just to, you're not count to 10, go for a walk, that kind of thing. But I think about what I've seen, particularly in the last week, with a lot of people who are very passionate about stuff that's going on in the world. And the concept is, sometimes people react emotionally immediately, and sometimes they overreact, and sometimes, based on very limited information, they jump to conclusions and they make the wrong assumptions, and then they share that. So the thought here is, before you publicly comment about something, maybe sit on it, maybe take a breath, maybe take that walk around the block, maybe reflect on it as well. And I've been trying really hard to do more of that. And this is something I learned from Liz. We were having some conversations around the dinner table about what's going on. And Liz is one of those people that I can completely open up and just be, very frank, very stark with her, because she knows me better than anyone. And so we can have these in-depth conversations that are nuanced. And you can't have nuanced conversations online. No matter how much you try, there's always some jackass who's going to misinterpret and put words in your mouth and stuff like that. And that's one of the reasons why it's really good to connect in person rather than just doing stuff online. But anyways, the reminder of doing that for ourselves out in the world, but also the reminder of doing that on the books, on the projects, on the stories. You know, you finish a short story, and before you send it to that market that you want to send it to, you sit on it. I usually try. I want to sit on it. I try to wait a week if I can. Sometimes I don't have the time, but at least wait 24 hours or 12 hours even, and then look at it again with sort of fresh eyes and a fresh perspective. There's an incredible value in that. I know I've said this in the book industry a lot, is, you know, we've given authors the ability to just publish their works with the click of a button or the click of a few buttons. But have we done the work to help authors understand whether they should press that button yet, or whether there's more things that need to get done? And that's something I reflect on a lot. We've given them the power. How do we help them with the responsibility? And we, as indie authors, have that power and that responsibility. So it is important. What Bob said and what John reflected on by sharing Bob's words is, don't hesitate to hesitate. I do kind of like that. Just so long as you don't hesitate so much that you don't move forward and you don't give it a shot. Because chances are, particularly if this is something you're really passionate about, if this is that story, that book, that whatever art it is that you've created that you want to put out in the world, chances are that art you've put out into the world is going to connect with someone else, and they're going to be just as excited about that. And that's the beauty and magic of what we do. There, I talked myself around in all kinds of circles here, but I hope you enjoyed the reflections. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you again so much for listening. I am honored that you allow me to come into your ear, potentially your mind, every week and interact with you. Until next week and until next episode, this is, as always, Mark Leslie Lefebvre wishing you great writing and good Stark reflections.
Thank you for listening to the Stark Reflections podcast. You can find show notes for each episode at starkreflections.ca.
The music for this podcast, Laser Groove, was composed and produced by Kevin MacLeod. Check out more of Kevin's great music at incomptech.com.